Is it live, Mancha?
Yes, it is live.
Yeah. Yes. So, hello everyone. Hope you all are doing good. So, I am Tanvi Seni, core committee member at Azure Developer Community Dehradun. Your host for today welcomes you all at the sixth session of AZ-104 Bootcamp series organized by Azure Developer Community in collaboration with WizLabs. Now, introducing you all to our today's speaker, we have Namrata Chaurasia, Cloud Solution Architect at Microsoft, among us. In case of any queries, you can type your questions in the chat box. We'll answer to them in the end of the session. And also stay tuned for the declaration of week 5 and this week's challenge as well. Over to you, Namrata.
Thanks, Tanvi. Hello, everyone. I hope I am audible to you and perhaps visible as well.
Yeah, yes, you are.
Thanks for the confirmation. I'll quickly pull up the slides and maybe you can let me know when it's visible. Sure. Is the slides visible, Tanvi?
Not yet.
Okay. Nevertheless.
Are you facing any problem, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm just sharing my screen. Perhaps if it's
Okay. By
visible.
the time I would like to request the audience to be patient, we'll be starting soon.
Yeah, is my screen like visible now?
Yeah, now it is.
Perfect. Sure. Hello everyone. This is Namrata Chaurasia. As Tanvi introduced, I am a cloud solution architect at Microsoft, and I have joined Microsoft a year back as a university graduate from IIIT Surat. If any one of you might have questions regarding how to get started your cloud journey or how you can actually leverage cloud to progress in your career, please do feel free to connect with me, and I'll surely try to answer your queries. Sorry, is my screen perfectly visible? I'm not sure
Yeah, yes, it is
because
fine.
I'm moving, but I see like the slides are still stuck on some different page altogether.
Yeah, currently it's showing just the cover page of the PPT.
Okay, now it's fine, right? Sure.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Thank you. Okay, and now it's on slide 2, is it?
Yes, yes.
Let me just share my entire screen if that helps. Sure. Okay, perfect. This is second slide is visible, right, to you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, folks, this is me, Namrata. As I introduced, you can actually connect with me on my LinkedIn, that's mentioned right below. And feel free to drop me, like, maybe with your queries or anything you want to know more about cloud roles or cloud technology or how can like be in, and I'll be happy to help in any requirements. So, okay, not wasting much of time. Today we'll be actually going through the like basic fundamentals and like on like an intermediate to an expert level on monitoring backup and recovery, why they are necessary, what are they, and how do we configure them to make the best use of our cloud. So, as you and in the previous session, you all have gone through setting up various services in Azure, how security works, how networking works, how each and every individual domain of Azure service works. But what after everything is set up and we need to do something, maybe we want to see how everything is coming up, or maybe how we are actually how the services are working, then what do we do? So what we need is something which can actually provide us with the insights, parameters that we can utilize to query our data, maybe visualize, okay, this is the problem faced by my service, this is where the connectivity is having an issue. So these kind of configuration troubleshootings and everything is a key parameter when you want to be a complete administrator on any cloud, not only on Azure but on any cloud. So we'll be going through a major segment of this today, and I'll probably help you understand to my best what we can actually do to leverage all of this. So starting with the very first service that will help in monitoring your Azure services across the horizon is Azure Monitor. So what Azure Monitor is basically, it's a service that helps you kind of to monitor all of your resources, your services, maybe it's a VM or any other service as soon as far as they are like on Azure. And logging and monitoring the health of your service is literally a vital component of production or maybe a deployment. And being an administrator, you should know and should be able to determine the cause of failures and try to identify any problem, like even before they occur. We do not wait for problem to just come up and then we'll figure out. No, we cannot. We have to be proactive in that scenario and we need to figure them out before even they occur. So Azure Monitor is actually a very helpful tool in that process. It enables you to gather monitoring as well as diagnostic information about the health of your services, and you can use this to visualize and maybe analyze the cause problem, or maybe if there is any issue happening in your application, in your services all across. From the examination point of view, the like exam will actually test you on how well you know like the services that are available, how you can actually configure and interpret those matrices, those logs and everything that are being generated, and all of these alerts and configuration troubleshooting, and if you're able to do that or not. So in this first part, we'll actually discover Azure Monitor key capabilities, and then we'll have discuss about the components of Azure Monitor, different matrices and logs, how they are generated and how we can make best use of it, different types of data. So there is not only like a single data that goes into, or maybe that is active into the logs, but there are different types of data. Like they can be numerical, they can be strings, they can be as lots different. So that's where we can actually make use of them and just understand, okay, this is what we want to kind of do. Okay, so and along with that, we'll have activity logs and so on and so forth. So starting with what is full stack monitoring. So full stack monitoring is basically providing an end-to-end monitoring solution for all of your underlying infrastructure. Maybe it's a VM, it's an application, it's a database, maybe some security components, networking components, all of them are covered, like all of them are monitored from like a single pane of glass, that is the Azure Monitor. And it actually captures all of your matrices and logs, and these are kind of monitored on a regular basis. Some can be like they're like different kind of intervals that we can say, and these are kind of then monitored. And after monitoring, we need to further process them. We need to assess each one of them, what's happening in there, what we want to make, like what we want to do with those alerts. For example, there is a critical alert going on and we want to maybe shut down a VM, restart a VM, and do something. So yeah, that we can actually do using this Azure Monitor. Discussing about the key capabilities of Azure Monitor, we have, first of all, as I discussed, we will monitor and visualize matrices. Just keep an eye on all of the numerical values, or maybe whatever like preceding values are being generated, and then we kind of analyze them. Like, okay, is my resource healthy? Is it operating fine? Is the latency coming, or is it good, or are we exceeding on that? Maybe the performance wise, the resource is not behaving fine. And the next thing is, okay, now we have the data, what we want to do with it. So we want to query, okay, I want to see how my application behaved on different time of the day, so I can check my traffic and then maybe make changes to my application, or maybe resource to maybe scale up, scale down, or something like that. And if I want to maybe check, okay, how my application was behaving in a certain region, or maybe how my application is behaving in a different region, so I want to check all of those. So it will have all of the activity logs, the diagnostic logs, all the visualizations on with all, when we cannot even troubleshoot. And okay, the next thing is, we have the data, we have processed it. What next? So after processing, what's the next thing comes is taking some actions. And actions in this case scenario will make maybe doing some other set of work, maybe redirecting it to a different process, running some functions, or maybe setting up some alert. Okay, some of this VM failed, or maybe this application failed. I want my administrator to immediately know that this application is not behaving and it may cause a business issue. So that in immediate like notification or alert should happen. And for, say, if I don't have that time to for some manual intervention, and I want the system to immediately take action. For example, if the VM is not having proper connectivity and some connection failure is happening, and I think that, okay, this connectivity is happening because of maybe the VM is not performing well or whatsoever, I will immediately take action to maybe restart a VM, or maybe add a scale set to it, so that no new like VM scales up, or maybe some new replication happens. Or if some altogether a failure happens, then what I need is, I want to redirect to my secondary backup. Maybe a secondary backup is there, a secondary recovery site is there, so that secondary site spins up immediately or within like margin of time, so that our business do not suffer. Because end of the day, you are responsible for business to happen, whether it's like website hosted, or whether a critical server is running, or whatever work is happening, business has not to be impacted. And that's where we'll have this key capabilities in here. The next thing is, we want to understand basically how Azure Monitor works and what are components are there. So basically, Azure Monitor has components for like insights. So there is like application insight available, container insight, VM monitoring, and we'll be going in depth down the session. We'll be going in depth on all of these and how visualization occurs. So there are different type of views, dashboards, and if you want to say integrate it to Power BI, so you can take out those like whatever we generated in the logs, we can export them to Power BI and create visualization charts, or maybe something like that. So that's one feature. Along with that, if you want to kind of analyze the traffics or analyze the parameters logs generated, so we have different workspaces like log analytics workspaces there. Then we have different Day-6 explorer. So in that, these are different key areas. And then responding, so we have a complete service that is in Azure Monitor. If you want to respond to it, or maybe if you want to scale it up, or if you want to perform some actions, maybe based on functions or actions, workbooks, whatever, And the next thing is, if you want to integrate some third party, for example, if you want to integrate some external component to your data, whatever data is being generated, and not every time you will have only Azure. You'll be not only every time you'll be working on Azure, you'll be working with multiple services across the span. So maybe third party services are there specifically dedicated to monitoring your resources and maybe taking some actions. So if you want to integrate it to them, so maybe you can create an event hub and attach it to the third party, or you can create a logic lab, or maybe connect it with some APIs to just have that connectivity established. So all of this is available in Azure Monitor to actually give you one-stop solution, a single pane of glass for everything. And if you see right in here, your application actually, application operating system, all the resources, subscription up to the level of tenant, you have the capability to access logs, store them, perform analysis over them, export them, do like custom searches and everything. So yeah, this is how actually the Azure Monitor looks from inside. So the next thing is, how do we define matrices and logs? And what's the difference between both of them? So one thing is, by terms you might understand that okay, matrices and logs are more or less same, but matrices are something that are numerical in value, but they're like data points being collected, and then you'll have some maybe graphical representation or a line point representation to analyze whatever is happening. It will only have certain key values and not have like a detailed analysis. Like, but if you want to go for like a detailed analysis, that's where logs come into play. So it will actually be a record, for example, a complete set of records going across like different type of parameters, and then they are organized in such a way that you can actually query on them. Okay, so I'll say, okay, find my application gateway where I want to just search how my application gateway is performing in the last 24 hours. So I'll get a complete record of it. Okay, this many times application gateway was like some was requested on application gateway. This meant the out if at time my application gateway was off, so that will show you. So all these logs came in like come in a very detailed manner, wherein matrices show you how your pattern goes across the time horizon. And that's why they like matrices are very lightweight and like they're almost real in time, but to get all of that detailed logs, it takes some time. So maybe some logs can be collected in like interval of minutes, some take even hours to get configured or maybe reflect onto the portal. So that's where the beauty of these two comes into play. The next thing is how we actually connect these and where how we utilize these. So as I discussed earlier, we'll have these matrices and logs, and then we will feed it into different services. For example, if you want to monitor them, you will connect it to a Azure Monitor, and you will have a wide like variety of pane of view. Okay, this is how this every VM or matrices are coming into. And otherwise, no, you say, okay, I want my logs to be queried, I want to perform certain actions or maybe some search queries I want to perform, then we'll have a log analytics workspace connected, and wherein we'll actually be performing queries. There are like different query languages. One Microsoft uses Custo query language, KSL. So KQL, or Custo search language, or Custo query language, KQL. So those kind of search query, the language we use to kind of search on our database. It will be more like of MySQL, or maybe if you SQL queries, if any one of you might have experienced or like used before. They will be similar queries in form like accessing data through a table. So that kind of queries are there. And sometimes you want, because there is a certain limit up to what time your logs will be stored in monitor or maybe in your log space, because they cost you. So what we want to do is, you can attach a storage account, and that particular logs can be stored for a longer period of time. For example, if you want to store those logs for 3 years, maybe your company wants to keep them for audit purpose. So that type of storage is then we if storage is being done through storage accounts, because storing logs and log analytics workspace is very costly, because they are being stored in like hot air, and they are being like accessed continuously. And maybe if you're not even accessing it, the system is being prepared so that if any moment you come in, the system will keep it prepared for you to make a query. That should not take time. So that kind of very like live querying is certainly require like a hot tire kind of a storage, but with some like additions comes the price. So that's where to like reduce the price, and we don't want to query like I want just them to for maybe say audit purpose. I don't want them to be like queried every now and then. So I'll keep it in a storage account and just keep it safe. Whenever I want to access, maybe I'll keep it in like cold tire or like say archive, and I'll revive them whensoever it is needed. And if I for say I want to integrate a third party, so as I mentioned, we'll integrate some event hub to it and the third party services or maybe some monitoring solution. Any SIAM tool is there, so we'll actually integrate it to that. Yeah, this is what I have already discussed, matrices versus logs. So that first of all, matrices is short, it's time-based, whereas logs are basically some event happens and they are like kind of long data format. Matrices are like quickly accessed and they are quickly like updated in real time, whereas logs are like kind of like irregular and they actually operate on a certain time like time frames. So if immediately you want to access log, certainly it might not be possible. And matrices are, as I mentioned, matrices are basically numerical values, so they'll be mostly available in form of graphs and charts. Whereas logs are basically a record, table form records. So you'll have the facility to actually query those logs based on whatever requirements you need. So, and yeah, so next pointer is how we identify the data types which are present in Azure Monitor, because there is not one type of data that is being collected, right? There can be different type of data as well as different type of sources. And you can think of monitoring data for your application in tiers ranging from your like application to any OS or services, or maybe down to the basic platform level. So Azure Monitor actually collects each of them like in like different tiers. So they're like first is application monitoring data. So it is like data about the performance and functionality of the code that you have written, and regardless of the platform, it will like give you results. But and the next is guest OS monitoring. For example, if you have set up some guest access or some operating system for guest, maybe guest maybe a guest PM also. So these are different tiers. So for if you want to have a guest OS monitoring, so that data is all about the operating system on which your application is running. So it can be running on maybe Azure, on any other cloud, or even your on premises. It like all of them are considered as guest OS monitoring kind of. Next is Azure resource monitoring. So this is data about the operations of Azure resources. So whatever resources we have in Azure, all of them we can monitor right in here. The next is Azure subscription monitoring. So this is increasing in order, like application, then OS level, then resource level. Now we have subscription to tenant. So in the subscription monitoring, again, you can like have data to for operations management of the how your subscription is being managed, and about the health and operation of all your Azure itself in together, right? And the last is Azure tenant monitoring. So this is data about your operations on a tenant level of Azure service. Maybe for example, Azure Active Directory that acts on a tenant level. And if you want to have kind of visibility or monitor that particular aspect, you can just go and check these tenant logs or tenant data. And Azure Monitor starts collecting data like as soon as you create the subscription. And like when you start adding resources, it will start logging everything, when you did when on what date, on what time you did what. So nothing gets lost, and activity logs will record each and everything that maybe you have created, you would have modified, you would have deleted, whatever. And matrices will tell you how your resources are performing and how it is consuming, how much it is consuming. So this is how an overall different type of data points that are collected. And along with that, Azure Monitor has one more thing, that it can collect log data from any REST client. maybe using a data collector API. So there is some like facility provided that you can connect these APIs, and this collector API will let you create custom monitoring scenarios and extend this monitoring to resources that are not exposed to the data through other resources. So that kind of collaboration can actually happen in like through Azure monitoring facilities, maybe API calls. Next thing is, as I was mentioning, activity logs. So what is actually activity logs? So first of all, Azure Activity Log is a subscription log that provides insight into subscription level events that have occurred. So from very top of subscription to very down to the resource level, it will actually log each and every activity that you are doing. It will range from data from the Azure Resource Manager. The data can be operational, or maybe some updates are being made. So those kind of data are there, and then different service health agreements are like events happen. So that kind of check happens through this activity log. And with activity log, you can actually determine what, who, and when happened to your resources. Anything, if it's like any write operation happening, any read operation happening, any delete operation happening, anything happening, you will have right in there. So it becomes easy for you to analyze, okay, if this change is made, what previous changes were made, and so if an application is not performing well, what events could have led to that, because you have that back of the track, you have all these logs in place, right? So you can and you can store these logs, and then you can query them, perform some events using the portal, PowerShell, CLI, and even APIs. And if you need to integrate them to third party, Event Hub is like the option for you, option for you. And again, if you want to store your activity logs as well, it similarly applies. You go and store it in a storage account, and maybe in an archival form or whatever tier of the data you want, and that will store it for a longer period of time. And for any analysis you want to do, maybe not on the Azure portal itself, but on Power BI, because there are some like visualizations that are not available directly in portal, but are available in Power BI, like a very high optimized visualizations or operations. So yeah, you can go and analyze that data in Power BI. So yeah, this is how actually the portal looks like, and I'll actually go and show it on the portal how basically an activity log looks like. But on a very higher scale, you can see you can have different filters that, like currently in the image, you can see different filters are there: management group, subscription, what time span, and what kind of severity is there. So there are different severity that Microsoft Azure itself assigns to an event, whether it's a critical or whether it's like okay, like some critical events are there, some medium level events are there, and non-critical events are there with low severity or maybe medium severity. So these kind of events are there, and you can download it, export it, you can store it, you can perform queries. All of that is available on this activity logs. So so on this, I just wanted to kind of show you some demo that on the dashboard itself. So yeah. Okay, so right now let's go and see how an activity log looks like, maybe for a virtual machine. Okay, so okay, right now we have one VM in here. So we'll just go and check what activities are happening or have happened on this in a particular time frame. So yeah, you see, it's right from the very beginning, like whatever time frame I have selected. So the time span is 6 hours. So I'll change it for say last month, and I'll see, and all of those operations will come with all. So you see, you'll have this update VM extension was successfully done. Then if there's something failed, you'll have a visibility to it. If you open it more, you will see at what time what happened, and maybe some health event occurred to that particular VM. Maybe some patch management is being done, some health service health was being done. So these kind of resources you can actually go and check, and whenever something happened, you will have the visibility right into your resource. And otherwise, you can go and go to your Azure monitor, And there also you can actually see all of your activity log. So right now, first of all, I'll give a brief how actually the Azure Monitor dashboard looks like, and then we'll go into detail. So this is your first view where what comes when you open Azure Monitor. You have different type of insights available. That is like application, containers, VM, networking insights. And for example, if you have application, you can directly manage your application, what's happening, how it's performing, if there's any error happening, and for any detections or maybe any triage or anything is happening, you can have you are having these many facilities, having matrices, you can generate alerts, you can set alerts, there are logs, and there you can, if you want, you can create separate workbooks for your specific resources or maybe resource groups. And there are then different diagnostic settings that you can actually apply, and these will actually be available not only right here in monitor, but as well as if you go to any one of your resource, you will find um, all of them in the side view. So give me a second. And yeah, you see, all of these are right available in any one of this resource. This is a VM, and you will have all of those insights right into here running. If you want to set up an alert for this VM, you can create one. If you want to see the matrices of this particular VM, you can just go ahead and check. Okay, this is how my virtual machine has been behaving down the period of time. If I want to go and check the logs, I can have this, like I'll have a log and log space attached, workspace attached, and I can go and check, okay, whatever my queries are there, and I can just type in and say, okay, I want to just see what my heartbeat is. And you can, sorry, you can just select, for example, heartbeat is basically how your machine is behaving. So we'll see. For example, last 7 days, let's see what comes out. So we'll see, okay, yeah, this is our like 15, the current like heartbeat of a machine is 59, it's how it's going. We can check variance like latencies, we can do different type of queries we can actually perform right in here. And if you want, like we'll be discussing this in detail, but just wanted to show you how this actually happens. And the next thing is right in here, if you see how many virtual machines we have connected in here. So, and it will give you an overview if we have connected. So there are currently no monitored VM. If you want to see, okay, one VM is there, which we can enable monitoring to it, and it will, the Azure Monitor will start monitoring. And if there are any workspaces, okay, we have one workspace, and we have different kind of onboarding options available. We can enable it for a single VM, maybe for some non-Azure computers that are maybe on premises or some other clouds. And we can go ahead and set up policies for specific VM, VMSs, like, or configure a workspace to get all our logs. And there, like, you can go ahead, set up your storage account, check for networking. Okay, what are networking insights? So I'll see complete like overall dashboard. Okay, there's one network interface, there's one NSG, there's one public IP news, there's single VNet. So, and you can actually go ahead and change your filters right in here, and this will actually give you, like, if you want to say example, I don't want this demo VNet, so I'll see there are no resources. So these kind of like features are there. If you have key vaults, you can go ahead and monitor them. If you have Cosmos DB, all of these services you name and are there in it. And if you want to perform some actions, maybe have attach some settings. So for example, right now I have some different resources, but I haven't enabled any diagnostic in them. So if I want to go ahead and attach it, I can do it. Yeah. So this is how like Azure Monitor in like on a very overview looks like. And next we'll be actually get like analyzing what setup, how we are actually going to set up alerts and different actions on our monitor. Yeah, sorry, before starting on this section, I just wanted to check if there are any questions. Tanvi, are there any, or sorry, this is
Yes, we have a
um,
that how can one monitor application code using Azure Monitor?
Okay, so yeah, so you will be actually you going and having deploying that application code into your VM, maybe a wash machine or some application. So that kind of service, application service. So then you're giving access. Okay, you can Azure Monitor, maybe actually the Azure service will actually try to run and check whether the health of that resource is okay, the application is running fine or not, whether if the app in backend how system will do, the system will try to make calls and check, okay, if I'm making this call, whether the system is responding or not. Okay, if the application is giving out some errors like 200, if you know HTTP 200 error is something that is okay, my application is running fine. But if it is giving out say 400 error, 300 error, then there is a problem. Maybe there is a connectivity problem, if there is a redirection problem, that is an application. So that monitoring happens. That kind of check actually Azure does for you to check if if there is a problem with the application. It will not go ahead and change your code or make anything like that. It will not also even give you the idea that okay, this is some section that has to be fixed. It will just check if that on from a networking point of view, from a security point of view, is there anything that application is not having correct configurations, and then actually that will provide some insight. So this kind of insights are there.
Okay, so I think Gaurav, your doubt is clear now. So shall we move further?
Yeah, I see one more question from Tarun. Is it possible to change predefined severity which can be configured by Azure? Okay, so some severity we cannot, because that's being determined after a long type of analysis. But you can actually, if you feel that some alerts are being generated, then you can maybe disable that particular event case occurring. So, but that's, yeah. And is it's monitoring resources, not the code, that basically failure and performance tracking, right? Why happens? It's okay, fine. Okay, so I think we can proceed with we can proceed further. And I think there was one mention about practical. So yeah, we'll be actually going through the dashboard to get more insights, how actually the logs and everything will look like. But this section will mostly be understanding how things work, because you will be actually able to perform all of them, but you should have that understanding how and where the things are being connected. Yeah. So yeah, going back to the slides. Fine. So, briefly covering how alerts are there. So, previously we saw that if there is any resource, we want to perform certain actions to it, and we want to monitor the criticality. Okay, some event is happening, some mitigation is happening. We want to generate some signals, and basically these will be nothing but some data points indicating okay, this particular section is going wrong, and you want to get you notified for it. By maybe you will create a certain action flow for it, and you will say okay, if this certain thing is not happening, there is something wrong and I want an alert to be generated. Or maybe if my performance is dropping to a certain level, for example, I have set up a server and I want the server to be at a capacity of 75, but for example if my server capacity is increasing up to 90, like that, like if the server access utilization is more than 90%, maybe I want to spin up another server, or um, do some actions to maybe divert it to some different. So that kind of monitoring has to be there. And if for example my certain services, if their utilization is dropping by 10%, and if they're like part of some auto scale or maybe a scale set, then I want to like kind of close it and then shift the workload to some different. So these kind of like actions and alerts basically are there that we can configure based on the activities that are there. And basically, the idea behind this particular section in from an examination standpoint will be to configure basically the alerts and actions, how you will be actually monitoring the solution, and how these alerts will actually be running in the world, like in the real world scenario. This is basically how the Azure Monitor alerts will look like when we have different severity, like on basis of different severity. For example, there's 10 from severity 0, and there's some with severity 4. So that kind of provides us an analysis. Okay, these are something that has to be taken care of very immediately. But there are some that okay, we can maybe take care of them maybe in this week, or maybe in some time, in maybe few days or so. But so these kind of levels of severity, we'll have that right in here. And this will actually be across all of the resources. So this will there is something called health score. So even your security health score basically is determined by all of these severities that are being generated, or maybe some mitigation is happening, something like that. That kind of affects your like health score, as well as like health of your overall like deployment, or maybe setup that you are having currently. And the features of like these alerts would be like we have a better like notification system, because not every time we'll go and check the portal. And the next thing would be we'll have to bifurcate which alerts we want to take care of immediately, maybe by the system, so that whenever that event occurs, the system immediately takes certain actions defined maybe by a function or whatsoever. And the next thing would be there'll be a defined workflow for it, that okay, there's some error, I'm getting some like inputs to it, some alert is happening, and certain action is taking place. So that kind of workflow is maintained for you, so that you don't go to 10 different things and check, okay, this is not happening or this is not happening. And because when you have large ecosystem, thousands of resources, it's difficult to manage each one and everything, but just by going and checking maybe on a resource group level or maybe subscription level. So that's where all of this confined unified experience will come into play. And yeah, this is like how we configure alert is basically we'll have defined scope, which resources we want to like kind of configure it on there, what kind of rules and like what kind of severity and all that we want to have, what kind of alert rules we want to configure, different type of actions group, and they will actually go and create this in the portal to understand how it actually works. Yeah, so um, okay, so we'll first go into the portal and see. All right. So currently you can see there are like no alerts associated. So we can go ahead and create different alert rules, different action groups, and maybe some alert processing rules. So if we do not want just an alert to be generated, but that alert should be processed in some manner. So those kind of like different things we can go and configure. So starting with alert, we'll start with an alert rule, how we can actually go ahead and create one. So first of all, we'll select the scope on which particularly like scope we want to do. We'll specify conditions. Okay, so now if you see in here, there is like a list of kind of signals or parameters that are defined by Microsoft. So they are like 300 plus kind of there. All what you can do is you can just select select specific, if you know, like okay, I want to go ahead and maybe configure all of my service health. And then I will see, okay, fine, I have these many services that I want to kind of monitor. In these all regions I want to do, and this service issue, okay, I want if what type of event should I be notified. So maybe if there's a service issue happening, okay, if there's a planned maintenance planned by Microsoft saying that okay, we'll be doing some maintenance in our data center or something, and for this amount of time this service might not be available or may not be working very well, or if there are any health advisories generated for our resources. And if there is any advisory that is from a security standpoint, okay, we have left maybe some port is left open that is that is exposed to public. And generally, when we deploy an application, we do not directly expose any to public. Rather, we go via an application gateway with WAF policies or firewall attached, and with all the protection, then we kind of let the traffic enter our system. So if there is some security advisory that we want to kind of understand, we'll just select them. Next is we'll have an action group. So let's go ahead and create an action group. Okay, if this something is generated, how we want to what action do we want to take? So let's give it a test action. Okay, and okay, so what kind of notification do we want? Do we want only the Azure Resource Manager specific role should be mailed, or we want an SMS or something like that? So we can go ahead and create, maybe say email. I want to say, okay, I should be informed in case of anything happens. For example, if I want to add some number who should be immediately notified on SMS, I can do that. If we are using on Azure Mobile, then we can specify whatever account email we are using, and then push notification will come in. And if we want a voice call, okay, then we can go ahead specify what are, and that's so specifically these few services are example like available all across this. Like this service voice is only available for US like contacts. So if they are like for people in US, this service is there. Otherwise, for this, and if we want to enable some common alert schema, it's okay. If we don't want, so we can go ahead and just create. Maybe I just want that email, and I can say email notification is my alert action type. Okay. Next is, okay, what kind of action do I want to take? Do I want some automation runbook to happen? For example, if you see, okay, I see that some action, some things like severity happen, and if that severity happen, what I want is I want to restart my VM. So I'll just configure it. I'll account, and this all I will just create an automation account, and that that automation account is created, and that will get executed when certain type of certain type of event occurs. So that kind of configurations we can go ahead and make. So this is taking some time, so let's okay, so okay, that is already, I think it's there, so it's not taking. Let it be fine. And we can also attach Azure functions in here. If you want, if you have created some function, then you can attach that function. Okay, this particular set of actions should happen. And if you want to send it to Event Hub for any third party, you can do it. If you want to attach a logic app, a webhook or IDSM, anything, you can go and then configure it on similar like actions, and that will happen. And finally, you can it's all like one feature that is incoming, that is like you can actually test your action group if they are working and how they are working. And then after that, you can go ahead and create it. So that's something you can do and make an action group. So now we have an action group. So for certain conditions, I'll get an email. The next thing is for what okay, so I have this resource group, and I'll give the alert name. So I'll give test alert. And if we want to have some specific properties, we can do it. Otherwise, we'll just skip, and we can configure it at a later point in time. Tags, and we can create. So yeah, we can go ahead and create an alert. So right now we have an alert, but there are no we have an alert rule in place, but that alert rule has not detected anything. specific as of now. So this is like, so if there is any, so it will like it will bifurcate if it's a critical error, if the error is like okay manageable, if there's a warning, and some are information and verbose. So basically these are more of planning point of view, rather these are some like action or maybe prevention. Warning, even though warning is something that you can take care of at a, like maybe we're discussing or if you need some permissions, but critical are something that you should, critical errors or something you should take care of them as soon as possible, because otherwise it will hamper your business. Okay, yeah, back to this. And okay, yeah, so we have seen how these alerts work and how we actually go ahead and create an action group. Yeah, so fine. The next section will be logs. Before moving to the next section again, I'll check if there is anything um, in the chat. Okay, other than being okay, so yes, there are like first of all the first yeah, so the question is, other than being codeless integration to some extent and being Microsoft native, are there any other good reasons for choosing Azure Monitor over open source tools? So there are some capabilities that open source tool offers and are not available, maybe not available in Azure Monitor, and that's where that integration comes into play. But having Azure Monitor in the system would be we can we can have integrations directly. So third party, in the third party maybe integration that you are the configuring, it may take some time, but what if you want some immediate actions to be taken care, or maybe directly you do not want your data to be migrated to a third party, because security and compliance is something very important when you consider business. Because not like for example you're trusting a particular platform, so say Azure, for your data, for your logs, whatever actions are happening, but you do not have that trust in some like third party, and you don't want any other third party to have that kind of access. So that kind of data security and compliance is being maintained along with the resources to the monitor. How the third party service is handling may or may not be that compliant to whatever you need. So that's one more thing. and and the next thing is, there are some services that are specifically available in monitor and not in third party. So it's better to have that kind of connection right in here, rather than going for any like separate integration and making those kind of extra efforts. Is there any option to add webhooks for Teams, Slack, GChats notifications? We have some, like for some applications we have those webhooks available, and specifically all these major, at least like for Teams you can actually go ahead and directly integrate all of your even if you are working on Azure DevOps boards and all of these resources, you can connect it to Teams, as well as few other like big services like Slack and all. You can actually go ahead and connect those through. But yeah, sure. Anything else? Okay, I think we are good on the questions. So yeah, moving back, let me go to the Azure logs and we'll see how it's like. Okay. So yeah, next part I wanted to cover is the log analytics workspace that we have been like hearing out for like quite a while, and what it is, how we'll be actually using him, and what's the use case. Because Azure log analytics workspace play like a major key role when we want to actually monitor our logs and like make use of them, query on them, and to understand. Because if you will see all of the major IT admins, or maybe who is maybe the administrator, or the person who is monitoring all of this or maybe the security team person wants to check what's happening. And log analytics is something, okay, he wants to check how many severe events have occurred, severity events have occurred, how many times my VM was not working properly, how many times my connection failed. So these kind of events they need for two purpose. First is so that the business continuity maintains. The next thing is they can make optimization and changes so that these kind of events do not happen. If there's something happening, maybe because of some networking configurations, some security configurations are being like preventing certain things to occur. So these kind of like logs or these kind of data points are there like available, so we can check, and that's why log analytics become a very like useful part when we want to have monitoring, so a complete like holistic monitoring solution available. So yeah, so as yeah, this is how like a log analytics is. It is actually an aggregation of all the logs data, where you can have those matrices view, logs view at a single point. You can go ahead and query the query. As I mentioned, it was like Gusto query language. So using that query language, you can query your data similar to what you would do in a DB, or maybe any other like any other platform. So that's similar, but it's just a format of querying the data. The data again can be internal as well as external. So it's like, for example, you have connected your on-premises machines and you have set up monitoring solution for them. Then you can actually go ahead and check whatever is happening in your data right inside your monitor, like inside your Azure Monitor logs workspace. Why it is useful? Because we can go ahead and establish like a different monitoring solution right in like on premises. We can keep it separate for different clouds, but right in this current scenario, no, what is happening, people, companies, organizations are moving toward a hybrid scenario. They are like deployments across different clouds, even on premises. And the difficulty comes to the administrator, where the person wants to actually monitor everything. So the person has 10 different platforms to monitor. It's an overhead, like it's a work, it's an overhead for the person to actually go ahead and check. So that's where all of these integrations are coming in, and slowly you'll see there are more Azure services coming in. For example, Defender for Cloud, now it's actually spanning across all the public clouds as well as on premises. Why? Because this kind of services provide you a single point of source, a single point of truth to actually check. So just imagine, no, you have 10 different books to read, and if you have one book to read, how easy it's to manage. So that kind of on from a manageability point of view, these kind of like tools comes handy. Yeah, so talking about the components of log analytics workspace. So, as we have seen in the portal, there are like different kind of data streams that the data that will be putting in the data into the workspace. The workspace will configure it in based on the log differently on based of matrices and logs, and whatever actions, visualizations, or any insights that we have set up, those will again push the data. So all of this data, as well as the actions, whatever alerts we have set up, all of this will come to logs analytics workspace. And here now, or maybe the storage or wherever you have skipped the storage, and now you have the full liberty to go ahead and explore, analyze. So there's a complete teams, and I'll say in industry we have complete different teams just to manage all of this security and different. There's a complete administrator assigned to just keep an eye on everything, if everything is running fine or not. If there is any problem, that certain pipeline has to be activated, maybe a certain action has to be taken. So these kind of processes are there. um, your logs for each and every like resources can be accessed through activity log. Otherwise, on monitoring, you have a section called logs, wherein you can just check for whichsoever, maybe say resource you want to have logs, or any specific kind of log you want. So those kind of logs are there. You can write your queries right inside like that. Like there is a section available, so you can write your queries, frame them, and run them. And also like this will collect all of your data again, like from all of your resources, hybrid and on-premise, everywhere. There are like different examples also included. So for example, for example, if I want to give you an example why it is necessary. So like as an IT admin, your one part of your daily job like will be to assess all of the systems there. If there is a patching required, if there are updates required, or like if there is anything requiring us scheduling, or something is not functioning well, or maybe there is a downtime happening. Because you must be aware there are services which have specific SLAs defined. SLAs are service level agreements. They are nothing but just providing you the insight. Okay, Azure provides you with an affirmation that my particular service will be up in 99.99% of times. That is four nines, so my service will be on. And if that service is for any reason Azure do not is not able to keep the promise, say that service went down due to certain, maybe some disaster occurred or something went down, something went wrong, then in that case there is a question. Okay, that my I wanted, because my business, because if the service is down, my business will be impacted, and if my business impacted, I am losing my revenue. So then they did in those cases this particular this um, this matrices come into picture. Okay, we'll say with this service was supposed to be four nines, but this is not four nines, but it went down, say 99.98 times, and we need like a explanation and a proper response to it, maybe in terms of monetary, like they even at some point in time where Azure claims that there are some services that have certain SLA, and if they are not, then we'll have refund for the customers. Or maybe if there is not, then there is some, whatever the like the business use cases, dependingly what whether guidelines have mentioned, those kind of actions are taken. So these are important. Like it's not just we just go and monitor, rather than from a like very high level cost perspective, and also from like business, it's useful. And next is troubleshooting an operational incident. For example, and like, because the system is not a simple process. Look, there are 5 VMs out there. It's a complex web of different interconnectivities, subscriptions, resources spanning across regions, maybe multiple landing zones, somewhere in one part of the world, one in other part of the world, they're interacting. So it's a complex web of services, and there are multiple data points coming in. Okay, this service is responding, this is responding. So with operation management suite, you can actually perform all of this analysis from different angles, maybe through different viewpoints. So these kind of and have correlation between these information. So that is very important. So if you want to, maybe if there is security breach happening or something like that, you can go ahead and activate that. Okay, so yeah, next is how these resources. Yeah, so this is what I was explaining, how these are sources are connected. So for this, like this, in the center sits your log analytics service, and then it is connected to a repository. This repository can be a workspace. This repository can be a storage account, wheresoever, and you will have different inflection points. It can be a VM from some different cloud, it can be an on-premise VM, different server data from on-premises, some storage inside Azure, lots of like data points coming in right down in here, and we want to have a overall view. So that's why this connected source is very useful in the scenario where Azure is there. And different type of data sources, if we talk about, then there are logs, there are performance, so data points, there are solution, like how different log, maybe system logs are there, if something is running perfectly or not, if there is some advisory being generated. So all these kind of resource data points come in, they are stored at a particular, like with all of these specifications, like table, like what's the type of this particular data point coming in, what's the time, what's the source, and all of those additional properties that we'll see in the system, they are there. So that's how we actually kind of need them. Yeah, so this is how actually it looks like, and we will have that query language, right? Like we'll make some queries in the portal and see how it actually looks in real life, maybe in the form of chart or table. So yeah, going back to that. is my screen not shared? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes, Namrata, it's not visible.
Okay, no, you should have told me. Oh, I actually covered a complete section without people even seeing it. Sorry. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, so I will quickly cover what I was actually showing. Otherwise, it will be difficult for folks to understand. Okay, yeah. So this is what I was talking about. If you can see the connected source, you will, yeah, you see there is a central log analytics service that is attached, and these are different kind of connectivities that comes in, maybe from a different cloud, on premises, and all of that is stored right in here. And then it's like connected to a repository that can be a storage account or a workspace, whatever you want to configure. And this is how it actually is being visualized. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, and this is how actually the chart will look like. So we will actually go and visualize right in the portal. And this one more section is that how the queries are actually comprised. So if you can see, there are like different type of logs that can be generated. That is, if there is an event log, there is a system log, maybe from a different type of system. Some agents are installed on different servers or machines, and they are also generating some kind of like logs. There can be separate custom logs that we might have configured. Okay, that we want to grab these kind of event logs, or maybe some alert rules, as we have established some alert rules and we want to kind of get them. So these kind of logs on data points we'll get in, and then we can combine them and check. For example, we want to create a query. We want to maybe check unify, like if there's any event happening via the success logs. So if there is an event level that is an error is happening of this, the severity level is error type, that is level 4. Then what kind of like event have happened with this? So this kind of like log analytic queries we can go ahead and customize in the portal. So yeah. Okay. Okay, I'll take questions post I have this section, and yeah. So okay. We will go to log workspace, and herein we will see. So we have created a log analytics workspace, but quickly I'll also show how we can actually create one, so that if someone of you want to maybe go home back and do some hands-on practice, it's okay. So you first go and select a resource group, name it say test workspace, and select the region and just review and create. And since it's being created in the background, I'll show what it's actually like to be in like a workspace. So yeah, we have this for one workspace that I've already configured. Initially, if you see, if you'll check, if you you can get activity logs of this particular workspace, if anything would have happened in here. So since there's nothing in the last 6 hours, we can it's showing nothing. If we would have gone back like a larger span of time, I'll see I have like created some workspace keys. I have created the workspace, listed some keys out of it. So these kind of activities kind of have happened. If we want to go ahead and check out the logs, so yeah, right now we have this kind of query. If you want to quickly if you know, okay, if I want to go ahead and maybe run some query on my virtual machine, I can select one from here. I can browse. Maybe if I'm not seeing, I can just check in. Maybe say I want to get the heartbeat, or maybe how what's my like heartbeat of my current game. So now it's 60. And in chart also we can similarly we can go ahead and see it in chart. Otherwise we can just maybe change and filter. First say I want some different type of availability. So how many times my VM was available. So yeah. Okay, and I'll get a like kind of a query generated. Some queries are like by default written by the engineers of Azure. You just go and select drop and down, and you have those. If you want to create maybe some specific queries for your own system, you can write your own query like how you can just go ahead and type howsoever you want. If you want to understand how what data points or maybe what features are available, so you can actually go ahead and yeah, so you can go ahead and check from in here in tables. There are different monitoring tables available. So, for example, if you see right now that this query is showing me how my memory is what's the availability of my memory in my system. So, at some point in time, what it was, this is how it will look in a matrices form of view in the chart form. If I want to go and check the results, okay, I can go and have all the results in the past 1 hour. Okay, this is how, what's the value for my memory right now, what was my memory value, so and so forth. If you want to change the query time, okay, I'll say last 7 days, bring me everything, whatever it was there. So this is how it kind of looked in the complete time frame. So yeah, this is how it actually kind of works. And you'll see results also coming in like, so yeah. So this is maybe how you can actually go ahead and configure. And there are different insights. For example, I don't want to use this custom queries. I want to have I want to set up my own queries, so I can just go ahead and check. Okay, there are different categories available. I can go ahead and create my own category. Okay, I want this particular heartbeat, and I want to configure some heartbeat of my particular VM, whatever it is. Or for example, if I want to have some different type of, okay, I want to create my categories by particular VM, so I'll say demo VM1, and whatever it is. So we can go ahead and create all of these queries right inside. And like if you want to see what time generated, what and result will actually have these kind of values in the on the top. So this like there is more or less a similar like functionality available. So you can go and check whatever you want to see, and yeah, so and so forth. You can even if you have added some functions, you can go ahead and check, okay, how my particular function, if my on my particular function, how my backup is happening. And you can see a detailed analysis how you want to use it in the editor, like this range of data time or how what operations have happened. And maybe if you want to get billing group details or maybe billing details or whatever it is happening, it's there. Or if you want to go manually, say I want to have filters in it, so I'll say, okay, just make queries on this particular VM, this particular, and just apply and I'll run and whatever it is. So yeah, this kind of queries you can actually go ahead and type on your own. Like the widely used, majorly used are already like under configured, but there are many that you, for specific business use case, you want to configure, go ahead and write your own query. There is a complete documentation like available wherein you can just um, wherein like yeah, so if you see there's complete training course that is there for your if you want to master like learn how these queries are being made, or maybe if you want to understand the overview functionality, how these queries are being written, or from a very standpoint like very start. So yeah, you can go ahead and just understand all of them. So for one thing, like for preparing any Azure exam or any like exam, one basic like highlight I want to put in is that please refer to the Azure documents as much as possible, because they have almost everything written in them. Maybe that cannot be covered in some courses. It is there because that's the standard, like golden mark benchmark that Azure follows, and whatever the world is referring. So whatever is there in Azure it's there in the docs. If you want to learn deep dive and being like an administrator or maybe some cloud architect or cloud engineer, like these docs are kind of serve as by benchmark for you. Everything is there, you just go ahead, refer it, understand them, and you are like good for any industry or anywhere, whenever, wherever you want to perform your role. So that's how it is. Okay. Okay, Fine. So I'll take these questions before jumping on to the next section. Hmm, okay. Um, one of the best ways to create a database that is LA workspace. Okay, how long does it take for logs to appear in log analytics? Yeah, so it takes some time. Some like logs are kind of generated within a minute, mostly in real time, or some in like even a few seconds, depending on how that processing happens in the backend. Some even take few hours to get generated, but depending on how the system is actually utilizing it, few but yeah, that's depend actually depends on the resource and the type of like logs that are being generated and how they are configured. So yeah, that's how it is. And what happens if you disconnect a log analytics? Will I lose my data? So okay, so that's why the storage accounts come into play. So if you don't want your log space to be storing the data all of the time, maybe, or maybe you don't want that data to pile up in your log analytics workspace because it's costing you more. So you can just move it to some storage account and keep them like for like a longer period of time, as well as saving on your costs. So that's what in industry we do. We do not keep everything in logs like workspace for a longer period of time. Okay, if you want to set a retention period of 30 days, okay, we'll keep it for 30 days, and after 30 days we want to send it to storage account, and it will get stored maybe, or it will get we'll archive those logs. And then if in future we want to kind of query them again, we'll bring in to the workspace, query them, perform actions, or maybe just do whatever in there. So you can do it, but it's just analytics workspace. If you go even by the name, it's like analytics. So if you want to do some analysis on your data, it's for it. If you want to just store, you'll just keep it in a separate. Yeah. Yes, we can write retention policies for it. But keep in mind the retention policy will actually reflect in your cost. So yeah, we do not recommend generally to keep it in workspace for a very longer period of time, only because of cost. And like, yeah, if you have that bandwidth, if you have money, okay, I'll spend. Okay, then it's okay. And is there any comparison between Prometheus and application insights or log analytics? Yes, there is. So like, yeah, even you can actually integrate it also, or otherwise, for example, there are certain facilities available that like you can make some connectivities between this, like in from Azure to Prometheus. And even my like we are also like have developing some connectivities directly, so that you don't have to establish a third party connector, rather than Prometheus can directly be integrated into your Azure environment. So yeah, that can be done. And how to get free Azure credits to create these type of resources like VM, where the resources are not free to use for testing purpose. Yeah. So for if you're a student, you can actually like maybe some students, like some organizations have their, like you can use your student mail ID to get some student credits. And there are like free programs also that kind of offers you similar kind of thing. And if not, Azure offers some services on some are like free kind of services that you can maybe create your own account. And otherwise, if you're looking for absolutely free resources, I'll say maybe you can utilize some programs that offer free credits. Even Azure offer $200, $150, I think, for users, for some free credits, like for to set up or something. But initially, after that, you'll have to kind of pay. But yeah, unless and until you are not having maybe in a student program or something, you'll have to. Do we need to use any connector to connect BI from on a log analytics workspace? Yeah, so you can actually connect. There's some like not very specific connectors you want to kind of install, but yeah, you have to establish that connectivity, because Power BI is a separate tool and Azure is like a different portal altogether. So you'll have to have some connector that is like connect to establish that connectivity, or maybe set up those in yours. Mm, in those in your Power BI. Maybe if you want to kind of set up some connectivity using that Power BI, you can go ahead and make those connections and connect it as required. So, do you support blob storage and event hub destination in log analytics? I'm sorry, is the for storing logs that are stored in log analytics, or for like storing that load like we were doing it in storage account? Is it for that? Okay, I think until we get more response on that question, I think we are good. And if there are more questions, please do put them in chat and I'll try to answer them as much as I can. Okay, so in interest of time, I'll actually go back to the section. Okay. And yes, so yep. So the next section we will be covering is monitor insights. So if you remember earlier, we saw in the portal there were different kind of insights available. One was VM insight, there were application insights. So that those kind of different insights are there, and how they are actually configured in that. So we'll configure how services are monitored, how VM and network, what are VM and network insights, and how what's the use case for them in real world, and then container and application insights, what's the use case and how can do that. So, as so far as you might have understood that there are like several data points being generated from different kind of applications, and we want specific insights on different type of application, because the parameters or the logs that a VM will generate will not be similar to what an application will generate. There are different parameters altogether. So what we have like embedded in Azure is that we have altogether different insights, different type of insights available for VM, network, container, and application. So, for example, if there is an application hosted, you can directly go ahead and like kind of set up application insights. So, from an application standpoint, those application insights will get generated rather than from more of a networking standpoint. If you want to set up maybe say networking insights for your VNets or maybe your connectivity is altogether maybe, so from that standpoint those networking insights will get generated if there's a if this like connectivity is proper or not, if that connection that we have established is like even accessible or not. So if whether it is denied or allowed, to those kind of, so these kind of like granular like kind of insights get generated, specific to each and every resource type that we want to utilize. For example, if it's a VM, we want to have different like configurations all in together. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and install that agent, and then those VM insights will start like coming in as soon as the agent is has started acting. If on net, if you want to like get insights on network, like on network you can't install any agent, rather we'll have network watcher for it. So you can from network watcher you can actually check if there's IPs are properly configured, whether the point to point connectivity is there, what's the next hop to my service, if that is reachable or not. So these kind of configure insights we can go ahead and see in network insights. Next will be container insights. So if you have for say AKS clusters in your, you have certain like containers in your environment, and you want to understand how they are functioning, what's their performance, what's their health. So you can go ahead and enable container insights specifically, and you can get all of those. And the next is application insights. So for specific application that we have deployed, we want to check if there is any specific application level mitigation happening. For example, in the application, we might have defined some redirections. In the application itself, we might have defined some connectivities. So those kind of like insights, if we want from an application standpoint, those can be generated from application insights. So yeah, we'll now see how we'll be actually what are like application insights in detail, and why like it's like very useful and required as well at the same point in time. So application insight will actually be a full stack kind of application monitoring solution for you, wherein like it will support any application which is like kind of instrumented through this particular application insight. So if there are if for say if you have enabled some this insight on some application, those particular applications will get monitored and not all of the applications. Like for say if you want to understand the DevOps, how that pipelines are being generated, or maybe some performance, how that performance is happening. If there is any security like loophole in our like application code defined where it can bypass the security or something. For example, if you would have left, if you would have set up some direct connectivity to the internet, then there's a security kind of issue that can happen because your application is directly accessing the internet rather than some security standpoint. And so this will actually help you improvise your security, number one. Number two, it will help you improvise your performance and resiliency all in together. And the application insight will support like a wide variety of platforms, that can be like Java, Python, and .NET, Node.js, and so on and so forth. And it will work on applications hosted on Azure, on premises, as well as like any other public cloud. It can like kind of you can apply like you can apply insights on them, and you can configure the insights for them, and you can get data and analyze it. If there is any specific for any application, you would have set up some DevOps pipeline, as I mentioned. So if there is something like that, you can integrate it to that DevOps process and get insights on that as well. So, and if you want, for say, you want to connect it to some different development tools all in together, you can just go ahead and create those connectors and place those connections, and you can also integrate it to some different tools other than the set defined. So yeah, and if you want to first say monitor or analyze your telemetry, whatever is coming from maybe a mobile app, or also so you can just integrate there's something called Visual Studio App Center. You can integrate it in there, and you can get it on your mobile as well. So these kind of like understanding you need to have, whether like how these matrices will get generated, and how these alerts will get generated, what happens to them next, what happens if I'm getting like this. You'll have questions in the exam. For example, as an IT admin, what this kind of like issue happened and that alert got generated, so what kind of service will you use if you want to have this kind of viewpoint, like with this kind of visuals you should be having, or this kind of response you want, certain actions you want to be taken. So what kind of service will you be using, or what are the benefits of using a particular service over there? So these kind of like questions can come. So that's why it's important for you to kind of understand, yeah, okay, this is what we need to determine, and how at what level we need to determine. So yeah, first of all, we will have matrices. Live matrices will come in almost like in real time, and then we'll have some alerts. Then these alerts will be then sent to a profiler, wherein like you will have different um, parameters, how this particular requests or is like requests are being served and how they're performing. Then that will be mapped to like literally an application and all their dependencies. Like you can actually have that complete map in place. Okay, this is what is causing the problem, or this is where the insights are getting generated, like a complete path to it. And after that, once you have bottled down or narrowed down everything on that, you will then have some maybe event or analytics running down on it. Maybe some you want to have some client side, you will be having some client side interaction, or maybe some traffic request coming in. So whatsoever it is, so you can analyze your user matrices. And this is also used wherein, for example, we want to check how, for example, some application want to check what's the user activity going on in our application, how the user is interacting. Then in that case, we will go ahead and specifically enable application insights, and we will see, okay, our user activity is growing or maybe dropping in this particular time, or maybe whatever is happening, what's the problem. So these kind of tool like this comes in handy at that specific point in time. So yeah, this is how the process flow will look like. So for example, a web, or maybe a client, the client would have maybe access the web app or the page, or maybe the application. Those insights will get directly logged into application insights. For example, that made some service request, and your web service, maybe the service you have established, perform certain actions, and some telemetry got generated. That will also get logged into the application insights. And whatever, for example, your web service is again attached to something in the backend, some dependency elements are there, then in that case those telemetries, whatever background services, will also get logged in to the application insights. Only thing to only keep in mind is we will have to enable those application sites on them, because if the agent is not running on it, and if it's not applicable for it, it will not log. So for example, if I would not have enabled it in here, this pipeline log would have not get generated. And then once we have these insights, we can perform n number of operations, maybe configure some alerts, send it to Power BI, send it to maybe Visual Studio, attach it with some REST API, maybe send it to some third party or something, like some other tool. Or if you want to kind of export it or maybe just store it to send it across, you can go into it, go to that as well. So yeah, our major like key pointers would be: first, it will help you, like it's actually, no, you don't have to code anything, it's just and no code is affected to it, it's just you'll get insights on your code. And the code approach will actually implement via maybe the SDK, so that you get insights. Otherwise, that application level access won't be possible. And the next is all those everything whatever is being generated and all that instrumentation what is happening is kind of stored in the inside application insights, and you get a visualization to it, like okay, this is what is happening for like my system. Yep. Yeah. So, okay. Before moving further, I'll just take if there are any questions. Okay. Would we be covering recovery service along with monitoring service? Yes, we will be covering. The next section after Network Watcher will be about recovery and backup, and how we can configure and what services are available and for like recovery and backup. Sure. So there are no more questions, and so I'll go back and okay, check it. Okay. Yep. So yeah, quick check. My screen is visible, right?
Yes, Namrata, it is.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so next is Network Watcher. So as I mentioned earlier, for networking related insights, we need to have a Network Watcher, because we want to understand how our network is configured, how the complete networking diagram looks like. Maybe if there's a different hops connecting, a particular VM is able to connect to the different VM or not, if that connectivity is enabled or not. So these kind of details we need to have our networking in like sync with everything. So we will discuss in this section, we'll discuss about what the network watcher features are. We will then verify the IP flow logs, how next hop diagnostics are there, and how we can actually view the network topology of our current virtual net. So yeah. Yeah. So briefly talking about what Azure Network Watcher is. So it's basically a service which will comprise of network monitoring, and diagnostic tools. So you can create complex and flexible setups in Azure, and that may be connecting to like a lot of VMs. And so just like on premises, all these configurations have to be configured right in cloud as well. So these connections have to be proper, they should be proper, and like different service restrictions placed, maybe different rule in the form of different rules, or maybe WAF policies, so that no no extra like connectivity or maybe extra permissions are given, not a required permission is restricted. So everything has to be checked, and we should be mindful of that yeah, we need to have a complete robust solution that is interacting, that is connecting only whatever is required. For example, I want VM in one VNet, do not to communicate with the VM in the same VNet, but in a different subnet. So what we can do is we can go ahead and configure inbound and outbound rules, maybe on the subnet level, maybe on the VM level, to restrict that communication to happen. And if, for example, and if we want specific communication to happen between two VMs, maybe from one VNet to some different VNet, we will specify different outbound and inbound rules and some policies to establish that connectivity. So that kind of setup is kind of checked when maybe through tools like Network Watcher. So things to note: first, it is a regional service, and yeah, like, so you'll have to host in a particular region, where otherwise, like, you cannot host like a global. We have different IP verify, like IP flow log verification is there. We can check if the next hop is reachable or not, or if it is correctly being routed. For example, I have configured a complete like solution, and I have my firewall in center. I have my firewall in on one, like, on one VNet I have one VM, and one next VNet I have another VM, but I want those VNets to communicate only through the firewall. So I should configure my next hop something like that, that the VM's next hop, the destination would be this VM number 2, but my next hop will be my firewall. So these kind of hops we have to check if they are being correctly configured and they are working fine or not. For example, I want my next hop for my any VM to be internet. So I'll configure it similarly, and I'll check, okay, if it is like configured correctly or not, and or if there is some rules that are barring it to happen. Then we can have VPN diagnostics. So maybe if there are gateways in play in between, and we want to troubleshoot or check them if there is anything wrong with the configuration, if something is going wrong, and that diagnostic VPN diagnostics will come into play. And if we want to have checks whether our NSGs are properly configured, if the traffic through the NSG is properly like restricted or properly allowed, we'll have NSG flow logs. Then we can have connectivity troubleshooting. So maybe if you want to have some connectivity from one point to another point, if that connectivity is proper or not, whether we are having some maybe an open end points in between, or maybe some restrictions are placed in between. And then in last, you can actually we have a topological view of your current deployment, how it looks like on the ground. And yeah, so okay, not okay, so we will actually go ahead to the portal and check what we can do in Azure Network Watcher. So yeah, this is how the network watcher looks like, and these are the like available services or maybe configurations that we can go ahead and maybe tools available to us. On overview, we will have different network watchers that you might have configured, and in the topology herein, you will actually have that view that how that particular network of yours look like. So I have this VNet. So if yeah, you can see there are not many resources in here, but you can see there is one VNet for me, that is my default VNet. There is then a NIC attached to it. Across that, there is one VM attached. There is one NSG rule, and there is one public IP to it. So these three resources are attached to this particular NIC, and in this VNet only I have these. If you would have like a bigger deployment, a bigger some bigger like landscape, then this would have been a bigger map for like for your deployment or for your environment. Okay, so the next thing is there's some network diagnostic tools that are available, and we'll understand how these are actually working and what's the use case for them. So first of all, it's IP flow log verify will actually check if a particular packet is allowed or not from a particular VM, and if there is any security group maybe restricting it, or if not, what if not, then yeah, okay, we'll get check that, okay, yeah, it's perfectly connected, it's having a perfect connectivity. So in the subscription, we'll say subscription resource group, we'll have a resource group already. We'll select which VM we want to take in, which NIC it is configuring, and okay, different TCP and UDP protocol. And we want to check for the inbound connectivity if this is the IP of my VM. So 10.0.0.4 is my VM VM IP, and I'll say all of the ports. So first star will depict all of my ports. Okay, so and I'll say all of the remote ports, and let me check if my VM is having connectivity to internet or not. So 000 will typically define internet. So it will just check and say okay. Okay, let me say local port is 80, and yeah. So yeah, so we will get in here, we'll get, okay, so yeah, we see that, okay, this is allowing internet access to it. So that access is allowed, and the network security group attached is in here, and the security rule is following this one. If we want to kind of check this NSG rule, yeah, we can go in and see, okay, what I have refined is in here. There is an HTTP rule that is on port 80, and which is in actually using the TCP protocol, and source and destination can be any to any. This is actually having my establishing my internet connectivity. So yeah, okay. So going back to our, okay, yeah, going back to, okay. If I want to say outbound connectivity, if I will, if I want to check if I have some outbound connectivity to it, maybe again we'll take this remote IP can be a VM. This can be some other resource having an IP address, and it will check whether whether it is like a kind of happening or not. So, so these will actually come in. Yeah. So we see we have now we have denied, we have denied all the inbounds. And if you would have remembered, maybe I can just show you that we have a rule that is denying all of the inbound traffic. So that is actually not happening. MSG. Yeah, so if you see there is an NSG, and if I go and check, sorry, outbound rules. Okay, if you see, I have denied all of the outbound rules. I have allowed VNet inbound, but I haven't like allowed outbound from like I have denied all of that outbound. So yeah, you can see. So that's why it's getting like, and it will show you why it's getting blocked. So if you see, okay, I have some NSG rule that is in place that is restricting my traffic, and I want to make changes to it. You can go ahead and customize your own rules, and then you will have that configuration tab. Yeah, this is the next thing, that is then if you want to have NSC level diagnostics, for example, I want to check if my virtual machine is doing fine or not. So I'll just give 10.0.0.4, and let's keep destination again as 0, and destination port can be any. So if I go ahead and check, it will actually show me if how my NSG is kind of restricting or allowing the traffic, or how it is managing the traffic. Okay, so if you see, we have something that this particular traffic has to be denied, because, and we have set of configured it in, and that's true, because we have denied outbound to it. So outbound is denied, so that's why we are getting. In case if you want to check the next hop and see where if it is landing or not. So if I want to check if my destination IP, if I want to check for internet, if it is going or not, it will provide me. If I want to check it for another VM, maybe you can put in the IP address of that VM. It will show that IP next hop is your particular VM, and IP address is there, and it will say, okay, there is a system route. Okay, if it is not, we will check, okay, there is no next hop kind of provided for this. Or maybe if you would have configured something in between, if I would have attached a firewall in between, then my next hop would have been a firewall would have come in here saying to for this destination from this source, the next hop is firewall, and only after firewall it is going wherever it is like supposed to. So these kind of tools are available if you want to go deep dive into it. You want to check how your each and every networking is kind of working. And for example, if and the next thing is NSG flow log. So if you want to maybe create a flow log for something, and okay, so don't have, I'll select an NSG. Okay, I got it. Confirm selection. Okay, and I need to have a storage account, so let's create a storage account as well. Test NSG flow log, And okay, then storage account is okay. Let's keep it in some resource group. And we'll define different TLS versions, whatever you want to configure. In lowercase numbers. Okay. Yep. Okay. Okay, it's already taken. So let's do and try. Okay, it's validated. So okay, this is this we'll have our storage account in here. We can configure what retention period we want to have. Maybe say 10 days, 5 days, 3 days, 100 days, whatever you want to configure. And if you don't want to configure, just set it to 0 and it will like be no retention period at all. The logs will be generated and it will be like removed end of the day. So yeah, we have our deployment completed. Okay, so we have certain restrictions. Okay, we have restrictions only with V2 storage accounts and not with basic. So we have configured a basic account. So nonetheless, we'll have different versions of it. So different versions will have their own properties. For example, version 1 will log ingress and egress IP traffic for both allowed and denied. And version 2 will have an additional capability to provide throughput information. Um, for say whatever packets or bytes are being transferred. And if you want to have traffic analytics also enabled, so we can go ahead and enable, okay, I want my traffic analytics to be like processed every 10 minutes or maybe 1 hour. That's the best we can do. So okay, and we'll have some workspace attached, and okay, yeah, we'll skip it and we'll create it. So this is how you can actually create an NSG flow log for any of your security group, and this will provide you with all of those logs for your NSG and whatever traffic and whatever visualization you want to do. Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is what we have. I'll quickly check. How do I configure network watcher service to be zone resilient? Okay, one more thing. Would we be covering recovery? Okay, no. Network with a complete region. You can verify it. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. That answer that has actually been answered, and that's thing, because Network Watcher is a regional service. So you have to kind of configure it. You can configure it for the resources available in a region, and in the same like kind of VNet wherever it is located, you can do it. If you want to configure it for a different region, you'll have to set up like a different all together for it. Sure. So yeah, going back to the next. Okay, so the next section we'll be covering is recovery and backup, and how actually DR works. DR will stand for disaster recovery. So how DR actually works in Azure, why it is critical, why and how, what are services do we have to kind of protect our data in kind of any disaster happens. For example, there is an earthquake, and this connectivity, maybe the connectivity of the complete data center got destroyed due to that earthquake or some hurricane or anything happened. Then how do we make sure that our business, our data, our whatever we are having is not lost, and it is like secured, maybe at not this place but some different place. There are different kind of options available, wherein there's different kind of resiliency that we say are available in Azure. Maybe if you want to make your application or maybe your resource zone redundant. So if, for example, you want to have the VM hosted in the different availability zones. So if you are aware, Azure has three regions in India, that is Central India region, South India region, and West India region. And in Central India region, we have three availability zones. There is zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. So if you want to configure different zone, like if you want to make your VM resilient, so your SLA improves. If you that depending on what kind of level of redundancy you are keeping, your your SLA will improve accordingly. So if you have maybe VMs in different AZs, so then your your redundancy improves. And for example, if you have configured maybe in a different regional pairing, so one you are having in, say, in central India region, the next you're keeping is in maybe central US. So that kind of, and for example, something happens into India region, the US region will pick up if you have kind of configured a secondary site or secondary. And for example, if your primary region you are hosting is central US, and if that kind of um, backfires or some mitigation happens, then immediately or within like whatever the frame of time that we have defined, the secondary region will pick up immediately, and that all of the data will be kind of synchronized, and everything will have to be up to date, because user experience should not suffer at any point in time. Whether whatever happens in the backend should stay in backend, should not come in front to the user experience. That's what it's all about. So yeah, and basically how we protect our data is either we create snapshots, maybe configure Azure backup, or create a complete site recovery. So depending on the resources, we will have our own like kind of configurations, how what level of data protection we want. For example, if there is particular development test like dev and test environment is there, so snapshot will provide you with a quick and simple option for backing up your VM, or that are using managed disk, so that is secured. Okay, we have secured our VM level configurations. And for example, if you want to back up your VMs, like maybe running a complete production workload, so then you will have Azure backup in place, and it will support application consistency for backup for like your for whatever window machine you're using, if it is window or Linux, whatever VM you are. And Azure backup will create a recovery point that are stored in geo redundant locations. So they are like vaults, recovery vaults, and they are kind of geo redundant. So those like recovery points what are created are secured now. And whenever you will restore from a recovery point, you can restore maybe the complete VM, or you can say, no, I want to just take up the files, or may pick up some files, maybe that got updated in a later point in time or something like that. And that level of configurations you can do in Azure backup. And if Azure site recovery, for example, the complete site went down, with a disaster happened, something happened, complete region is facing an outage, what should we do in that case? So we'll have a complete like site recovery solution in backup placed, wherein we'll recover our applications or VMs or workload from a different location, but in from a different location, but very quickly, without waiting for the current region to come up live again. And that's why like disaster recovery is, because disaster recovery is basically required to keep the application and the business going on, so your workload should not suffer any kind of mishap whatever happens in the backend. And if there is a risk involved, or anything happening, we'll actually test it before even it happens. So there are like different like setups that we configure to just implement the test. Okay, how this there are different kind of stress testing we do. What if something happens in the backend, how will my system perform in the kind of disaster? Because I cannot create an earthquake, right? But what I can do is I can create certain environments wherein it will behave like something happened, and due to that particular failure, my system went down or my region went down. And what happens if something like that happens? So those kind of tests are like available, wherein you can just go and test your like workload, like for all of that whatever is happening. Okay, so yeah, two terminologies that I literally wanted to focus, and you will actually come across whenever you are discussing disaster recovery or backup or anything. Two terminologies you'll have to understand very carefully. One is RPO and one is RTO, and this will actually determine how you will configure your backup or disaster plan, because RPO is recovery point objective, uh, whereas RTO is recovery time objective. What RPO is, basically it is the amount of data you can afford to lose. If maybe your server had a failure, or that particular region had a failure, anything, if any failure occurred, how much data loss that you can afford is what your RPO is. For example, if you back up your servers once every day, maybe at 8 p.m. at night, you are backing up your server every day. So if something happens, for say you backed up your server at 8 p.m. today, and something happened at 9 p.m., or maybe something happened at 7 p.m. tomorrow, what will happen? The nearest point that you can recover back to is the 8 p.m. yesterday, and you will lose how many 11 hours of whatever activity or data that has been there. You will lose that. So that is where recovery point. So if as an admin you are like willing to lose those 11 hours of data, whatever would have been collected, it's okay. We'll set our frequency to 1 day. But if we for say we don't want our RPO to be this much, like a day, and I lose 1 day of data, I'll configure it for say 5 minutes, 1 minute, whatever it is required. So okay, I'll lose only 1 minute of data, because on a small scale 1 minute do not seems to be very large, but on business scale 1 minute is, maybe it can be a million requests, and million requests, maybe it can be user data and something, so that data is lost for you. In that case, we'll have we want to specifically understand what the RPO is, and after getting, okay, I want this much of RPO, I want to configure my service in this manner. I will have these configurations in similar manner, and RTO will be is the time that it will take your system to get back and back running, like the original system to back and running. So whatever the downtime you will face, that's what the RTO is. So how much downtime you want to face, that will again depend on how you will how you will configure a system. You say, okay, I can face 5 minutes of downtime and my users will not have that much problem. So okay, 5 minutes is the downtime that we can take and configure our disaster DR plan something. So in 5 minutes that switch should happen, or maybe that shifting should happen. But say maybe the secondary region or secondary backup plan, whatever we are having, should fire in. But if we say, okay, no, my application is for say payment gateway, 5 minutes of downtime in a payment gateway is a huge loss of business. So the companies cannot afford that much of downtime, or maybe, so that's wherein we'll have, okay, no, we want RTO to be less than say 1 minute. We want the RTO should be less than say whatever, say 30 seconds, whatever. So we have, like, if you are maybe engineer working on backup or DR strategies, this is something you'll have to be very mindful of whenever you are working on this. And so same will be applicable to Azure. So whatever resources you are using, what's the RTO and RPO you want to configure, and based on that you will have different plans. Maybe you will have replication on the same region, maybe you'll have replication in different region, because latency will come in. If I keep my secondary region in US, within seconds I cannot switch back. There is a latency factor. There is a whole lot of connectivity will have to change. Redirections have to be made. So all that will be on system level. System will pick it up, but system has its own limitations. No, so pick it up. So that's where RTO and RPO comes in. For example, if I want less latency or less time for picking up back, so I'll keep the region somewhere near to mine. But sometime what happens if the region is nearby? For example, I do not change the region itself. I just kept change the data center, maybe the AZ. Then if that all the three AZs data centers are down, my service is gone. Although if one set data center is down, it will quickly pick up from the second data center. But if all the three gone, I'm down with it. So different level of strategies we'll have to plan if we are configuring that. And recovery methods would again be backup. That can be like a copy of all the business critical data that we were talking about. It can be a cold site. So cold site will actually be some critical infrastructure copy that can be prepared before the disaster is like happening, or the before disaster before we kind of recover back everything. For example, when we have one site in US, one in India site is down, and now every data for say for now the data is being stored in US site. Now for the primary India site, for say 1 hour the primary India site is back on back in action. Now we want this whatever data was collected in the US region to be kind of synced with so the India region should sync in with US. So that kind of a cold site we'll have, so that before all the DR is completed, we'll have the secondary site as a cold site. And the next is hot site, is whatever it is like data is incoming, whatever request and what traffic is incoming, request data points are incoming, we want to have like almost a ready to swap kind of a scenario. We cannot wait one day to have those transactions made. Maybe as soon as it is like ready, it should be swapped. Like that should be immediately transferred. Some data can wait. Maybe there's some log data that can wait for even a week after it can come in, and maybe that sync can happen. Some data cannot. So these are different type of strategies you'll plan. Yeah. Okay, so before going on Azure Backup, I'll quickly check if there are questions, and other than that, we'll go ahead. Sure. Sure. Okay. Parallel servers are active in other geolocations? Yes. Parallel servers are active in different geolocations depending. For say, you have 10,000 servers in India, and you want to keep those 10,000 servers running somewhere else. It will be a huge cost for you. So what we will do, we will not keep all those 10,000 servers running on there. What we can do is we can keep them as backup. Maybe a secondary site that only kicks in when the first site is down, right? So this will actually what this will assure us is that we do not spend too much on cost, because cost is like when we are on a small scale, we there's bill, our bill will come in maybe say thousands or what. When you are in company, the bill will literally come in INR. If you talk, it will in crores. If you talk in dollars, it will be millions of dollars. So you cannot afford to have that kind of loss, but cost wise. So what we'll keep in like a cold kind of a setup. There's something called active passive. So there are different configurations when you talk about, even in different services also there's like kind of an active passive configuration, active. So active is something that there are two services, I am keeping them all on all the time. So for example, if the traffic is coming, it will come to this way or the other one. But what can happen is, because it's active and it both are acting in similar fashion, but the thing is cost, because since two services are running for one action, we will be cost we will be having cost twice, because some services are on deployment basis, or not like how much you use them, right? So but for example, why I can keep is active or passive. Everything will go in through here unless and until this one is shut down. So for example, this maybe this application gateway gets shut down, I'll have another gateway, maybe another firewall. So once this firewall is kind of stopped working, we that data will immediately be transferred to that passive. So right now it was kind of in hibernate state or something like that, and as soon as this route fails up, traffic will start coming in, passive side will get activated. This is called active passive configurations. So that those kind of configurations when you have, no, so this is similar how it works on larger scale as well. If you for say, if I want my complete setup in India to be replicated to US, I'll keep it replicated, I'll just keep only that synchronization happening. I'll not keep those VMs in running state, I'll not keep those like all the services in running state, I'll keep only that synchronization to happen, maybe data disks or maybe some of those syncs to happen. So this, the other side will pick up from where the first site left. So that kind of we maintain in when we want to configure backup in DR. Otherwise, having two different sites running like the same thing, it's just like a cost overhead for the company. So for some applications that are like business critical and we do not want, we'll keep them in active, because if this do not happen, immediately it should go back to this. So that's how we do it. Sure. Okay, so this is no more questions. I'll go back and quickly take cover the last section, that is Azure Backup, and we'll see how Azure Backup is configured in the portal as well. Sorry, I cannot like create a disaster recovery plan on live, because there are like lots of components involved. So that's why it was more theoretical on that. But we'll actually at least see how we can actually configure these backups and all. So backup is basically nothing but a managed service by Azure for backing up and recovering the workloads. As I mentioned, if one site goes down, that other side should pick up. The requirement for Azure Backup to be set up is we should have something called as Azure Service Recovery Vault. So this recovery service vault, what it will do, it will store those backups in like I'll maybe take you to the next slide. Yeah, this is how it actually looks like. So for example, you have these workloads all in here. And what will happen is you will all of the backup what will be happening, it will be sent to this service vault. And this recovery service vault will make that if you know in git like in github you have those points wherein you can actually roll back to, for example, maybe there are some points wherein you want to roll back to a particular point in time to that particular like that configuration. So similar to something similar to that we have like for example I have configured 10 minutes, so in every 10 minutes I want my data to be backed up to the service vault. And how that backup will, like the service wall will have it, and then that it will actually happen. And finally, for example, if something happens, what they are being like kind of coordinating it in through this particular endpoint. And we have some Azure backup policies in here, so how that backup will happen. And once something failure happens, this everything will be picked up from the recovery service vault. So this vault is kind of a storage wherein everything will get picked up once something bad happens. And there will be workloads that will support Azure backup, like directly back. Azure backup is Azure VMs, on-premises VMs, SQL Server workloads, and SAP HANA workloads. So these are the only services currently being workloads being supported for Azure backup right now. Okay, so let's go quickly to the portal and I'll actually show you how we can actually create a backup. Okay, sure. So if you see, we have two different services. One is backup center, one is recovery service vault, one is backup vault. So let's first go to backup center and understand what it is. So herein this is actually a portal wherein you will see all your machines that you have configured for backup. If you want to attach some policy to your backup, you can do it. And if you want to attach a vault or whatever, so you can just add it here. Right now you see like there is no backup that is scheduled, or there is no on-demand backup. Nothing has happened because nothing is configured. And based if there is any security alerts being generated based on severity, they will get also listed in here. So let's quickly create one backup in here. We want to configure backup for what kind of data source. So as I mentioned, we'll have these many services supported. One is Azure Virtual Machine, SQL in Azure VM, and Azure Files, SAP HANA, Azure Disk, Blobs, Database, PostgreSQL. So yeah, and what we need to specifically have a vault, that is recovery service vault, for this to take place. So we'll select some vault. Okay, I have one vault, but so I can go ahead and select. But in case if I didn't have if I have one vault, I can go ahead and create one. So probably maybe I can just show you how we create a recovery service vault as well. And yeah, so you go ahead and create one. Okay, let's resource be this, and let's name it test RSV, and review and create, and we'll create one. This is how this is like it's like not a big process, to be very specific, to create recovery service vault. And how recovery service vault from inside will look like, it's like you will have different options. If you want to write in here also, you can attach a backup, you can create a site recovery. And if you want to maybe have some different configurations seen, like what's my backup stats, what's my site recovery stats, nothing. So yeah, nothing is coming up right in here. If you want to manage access, maybe if you want to see who's assigned or whatnot, or maybe if you want to check who has the access to create it, private, what if there are any private endpoints that we have connected for this recovery vault. Maybe we don't want to kind of redirect our recovery service to happen through internet, so we can establish private endpoints, that so that these endpoints will actually be on Microsoft backbone. Connectivity will happen over Microsoft backbone, nothing goes over internet. So those kind of connectivities are there. And we can check up, okay, let's check what, okay, we have something. Okay, we want to configure a backup. So okay, so yeah, so as you can see, we have this demo service RS vault. I can use it, or maybe I'll just select vault if that other vault would have been created. Yeah, okay, let's go and select this vault, continue. Yeah, next thing is you see in here you have different type of configurations policies available to configure your backup. There is a standard, there is an enhanced one, depending on how what kind of features you want. For example, if you want 1 day backup, you will go for standard, but you say no, I don't want 1 day backup, I want backup every hour, so I'll go for enhanced. Okay. And for example, whatever the wall tires are and operational, so these kind of different resiliency what it offers. So this do not offer this that our husband it does. If we want to create a new policy, for example, maybe go ahead and create your own policy on the different frequency. I'll just say, okay, frequently start time at it and every 4 hours. Okay, so minimum I can do duration for I say 24 hours and retain instant recovery snapshot for say 7 days. The max time would be 30 days for it. And retention, okay, and Azure, okay, so this is how I want to daily backup points should be retained for how many days? So I said 30 days. For weekly backup points, I want to say, okay, on every Sunday for 12 weeks, that retention of weekly backup points should happen. There should be monthly backup points. So yearly, so what in a year, what happened? So these kind of configurations, like really like by minute configurations, you can go ahead and make. We'll just keep all the basics for time being. Yeah, we okay and okay. Got it. So we have our own enhanced policy in place. So yeah, we can see what the details of in here. And yeah, let's go and add a virtual machine. So yeah, we have one. Got it and added. So okay, this is added, and we will enable backup. So backup will actually cost you. So be mindful of that. You're only testing and trying it on environment. Like whenever you have the right set, maybe if you're doing it in like your workplace, you should have right set of permissions. And if you're doing it on your own, you should be mindful of the cost that can come in. Otherwise, you can just have an overview whatever happens. So yeah, like it will happen. It will take some time for this complete deployment to happen. So, and site recovery is something I can probably show you, but it will require a lot many components, maybe a different server all like together, maybe it's in different region, or if you want to actually have a recovery for your VMware machines, you can do it. Maybe your Hyper-V machines, you can enable those kind of site disaster recovery, and there's a complete process for it. So in interest of time, I'll not cover it right in here, and you won't be like asked that much in detail. But this is how it actually looks like when we talk about backup. And quickly moving to site recovery. So yes. Second. Yeah, site recovery is like basically what we discussed about, that if one site goes down, we should have something going on in the secondary site. And so we will have maybe cross zonal, that one thing, and maybe we can have a cross regional site recovery plan established. So depending on the use case again and the requirements, we will go ahead and set up that kind of requirement, that kind of a setup. In the diagram, if you can visualize, this is how actually an ASR plan looks like on ground. So for example, you are a user sitting here in internet, and so your request is routed to a traffic manager. So the primary region, for example, you have set region 1 as a primary region. It is highly available, it's on for all the time. You whatever public IP is coming, whatever request is coming, your load balancers, your web servers are there, then your app server, your DB server, everything is having, then they're connected to disk, and that disk is so this is kind of an active passive setup. When you have active, it is running. When there is no issue, nothing will happen to it. Secondary site, only this data replication will happen. Why? Because we want to pick this secondary setup right in from where we left this off, so that disk will maintain that kind of sync is kept, that this sync will be on. Other than that, this kind of service is kind of in like hibernation mode, it's turn off mode. One, as soon as this particular is down, the second region will pick up in the defined period, like whatever the defined time has been like there configured, maybe it will pick up depending on how the resources pick up fast, and it will fail over to this particular region. So that failover happens how we have configured the policies and how soon these all are kind of set up to pick up, maybe specifying whatever the RTO or RPO we have. used in our design. So that RTO and RPO is nothing, you will not feed any direct value rather than you use it in your design. For example, in current, we have used availability sets. So the SLA right now we are getting is 99.95%. If we would have wanted to move like increases, we would have maybe used AZ kind of setup or some different kind of a setup. So that's how we kind of manage SLA, depending on the business case requirements again. And yeah, this is how it looks like. Your kind of this is your source US region, and that's your maybe target region. Everything will be similar. Each and every deployment will be similar except for that particular replication that is happening. And once that site is back, the it will again be kind of replicated back. Okay, so okay, my source site is again back. So it will send all the logs and all the matrices back to the primary site so that they again behave in sync. They should not behave in, say, if I am a user and I logged in as per se and I kind of maybe have purchased something and put it in my cart, and that cart value is kind of being stored in the secondary region. Now my primary site is on, and now my traffic is redirected to primary site. I do, and what will happen? Primary site do not have any idea that you have put 5 different items in your cart. It will say you have 0 items in your cart. So you don't want that kind of thing to happen. So what will happen? That this information will be transferred to this one. Okay, so this user has this amount of cart items in it. So yeah, you will be having that unified experience all across. And this type of things are also happening like in many different services we configure, so that maybe in the time of routing, if you learn networking in deep, you will see, okay, we configure certain services in certain way that they do not behave at two different service points to a user. The one user is served from a particular maybe endpoint only, and it will not be served from a different endpoint, because otherwise the user experience differs. So that's why we want endpoint is our endpoint of having this is so that whatever happens in backend, the front end user do not know that okay, something went down, or I am like, okay, I'm not able to access some, and so that so far, so something like that. So if you guys might have been following the current trends, and you would have heard, if you might have heard some time back, Cloudflare went down, and due to that, several services of different like organizations went down because that particular service Cloudflare was down. Their DNS were not working, their CDNs were not working. So we don't so how we want to design those kind of services or anything, that if anything goes down, we should have something in backup. We in our general life also, no, we keep those backups. So that's where like the cloud is no different in that. And the last topic that I want to cover for today is the backup reports. So this backup report is actually an insight on how that whatever backups you have configured are like kind of performing, and all those matrices are generated. And maybe it also allows you to focus how much storage will be using if you are configuring the backup in similar fashion, because at end of the day, the backup is again like a data that has to be stored, maybe as a VM or as whatever service, or maybe as a storage account, maybe in the form of some files or whatever. So that's how it should, like, they like kind of generate those reports, so you can go ahead and audit your backup. For example, the backups are happening too frequently and you are getting too much of data as a backup store points, and you want to and you want to and you want to configure it, say, okay, I don't want this much amount of data to be generated, I don't want to consume this much, let me reduce the frequency of the data backup happening. So these kind of like background planning and mindset goes into after analyzing all these reports and all of it. And this again will use log analytics for its logging. So log analytics will actually sit in the center with all of that things happening to make like provide a unified experience to you as an administrator. Yeah, and this is how it actually looks like. So you have first, say there's a log analytics workspace. We have this recovery service vault wherein our backups are being kind of managed, and they will be like kind of coordinating with log analytics workspace on all of their performances and whatever uh, data pointers are being generated. So and in Azure backup we have those policies in here. So based on those policies, everything will be kind of running, and some settings in the recovery service vault as well. So yeah, this was all for today that I wanted to cover from the examination point of view for AZ-104. I hope I know some points literally require in-depth insight and in-depth studying when it comes to the exam. But in 2 hours, it's difficult for me to kind of cover for us to cover in all of it. But yeah, I hope I tried my best to cover all of it. Yeah. Okay, let me take the questions and then we can probably close this. Okay, what does site recovery do to ensure data integrity? So, though that sync to ensure that the data integrity is there, we have some compliance rules established. And the next thing is that we make sure that if the data there's some compliance issues, and that are not following in together, then we configure it in a similar manner. And there is sync happening. For example, I'll take an example. You have some European Union have some policies that they don't want their user data to sit across anywhere else across their region, maybe their country. Some they have, and in India also, especially these government sectors and government companies, we don't want our useful data to go outside. For example, our Aadhaar data, if you know, if it was in news, Aadhaar data has to be stored in India only. We don't want it to store somewhere outside because it's our people data, and we don't want some third party here will be some different country organization want to make use of it or maybe access it. So then we kind of configure it maybe in different region maybe. So generally in India, if we want to configure something, so we keep primary as maybe say Central India, and secondary we'll keep South India, secondary we'll keep West India. If we keep say South India as primary region, we'll keep maybe Central India or something as secondary, if we want to maintain the data protection laws or whatever they are. And site recovery basically plays a vital role to serve the failovers. Yes, it does. It's basically the disaster. Whenever something bad happened, what next do we have to kind of get everything back up and running? Okay, so yeah, this was all for today. I hope didn't I think I literally extended 22 minutes. Sorry for that. I know it's like Saturday and people might be going out, and I really
It's
appreciate you guys doing it and taking your time to kind of learn something that is useful to you, maybe in your career and your jobs or whatever.
Yeah, sure. It was a very insightful session, Namrata, and I hope our audience will find it very helpful. So we are very thankful for you for being with us.
Thank you so much. It was actually my pleasure to come and talk to everyone. Yeah. And I hope I kind of added something to you, like this 2.5 hours, whatever they were. So they added some value to your time.
Yeah, they surely did. Okay, so now I'd like to call Yakshu Makkar, a dedicated community leader and senior co-committee member at Azure Developer Community Dehradun, for declaring the Week 5 challenge winners and also presenting the challenge for Week 6.
All right. Thank you, Tanvi, for that warm welcome. Firstly, I'll take a quick check. Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, you are.
All right. Thank you for introducing me, Tanvi, and thank you, Ms. Namrata, for coming with us and taking this insightful session. We really appreciate your time, and definitely it's a weekend and Saturday evening. So thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule. Thank you so much.
No
Uh,
worries.
so
My
yeah,
pleasure.
Guys, this is Akshu Makkar, and yeah, I'm a community leader. I really like to do all the community stuff like this, organizing events like these, and I really like to interact with people in the community. So yeah, that's just about me. So I'll quickly share the slides for what I was invited. Yeah. All right. So AZ-104 Bootcamp weekly challenges. I hope you all are really enjoying. Tanvi, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I hope you all are really enjoying this boot camp, and the winners, of course, are definitely enjoying to get goodies from Microsoft Azure. So these were the winners for week 2, and then these were the winner from week 3. these were the winner from week 4, and the previous week we had this challenge. So the challenge was to write a blog on Azure virtual machine and post it on LinkedIn, tagging Azure developer community and West Labs. And I hope you all are really excited to see your names in the next slide. And yeah, so show some excitement in the chat, guys. And I really want each and every name over there in the next slide, whoever is attending this session. So then are we excited?
Yeah, yes, but I can't see our audience is excited.
Okay,
Like
so
it's
just
their hard works.
yeah, excited. Yes, yes, excited.
Okay.
Rajesh says excellent boot camp. And yeah, thanks to much thanks to all the audience and participants for making this boot camp success. Without their contribution, definitely we are doing for the community. But if there is no one in the community to see it, it won't be a success. So thank you to all the participants who like regularly attend the boot camp. So we'll quickly move to the next slide, and these are the winners for the week 5.
Congratulations,
Congratulations, guys.
everyone.
So I'll quickly take the names of the winners. It's Anirudh, Aniket, Apurva, Purva, Pallavi, Yash, Sanjuk, Bhargav. I hope I took all the name correctly, and I wish you guys very. I wish you congratulate you for getting into the week 5 winners, and for those who didn't get into this week winning list, don't lose hope. Don't get demotivated. There are a couple of more week challenges where you can win similar goodies. And for those who won this week or the previous week, I want to make one thing clear that you can still get more benefits from this bootcamp. There is a mega prize at the end of the bootcamp that will be given to the winners on the basis of what contribution you have given in this whole 8 week bootcamp. So don't stop contributing, keep contributing, and I wish you best of luck. Now, quickly moving to the week 6 challenge. So, firstly, there will be a quiz on Kahoot right now. And after that, for this week, you have to again write one blog on today's session that was monitoring backup and recovery. So, guys, I hope that each and every one of you here will write a beautiful blog, and we wish to see as many blogs as we can. And yeah, don't forget to fill the form for the what do we say, for the contribution that you are doing. Sometime it happens that you have written the blog, but we do not see your entry in the form. So do not forget to fill the form that is shared. So do that, and do tag Azure Developer Community and WizLabs in the post, LinkedIn post. And I would also like to thank WizLabs for the collaboration for this particular bootcamp. So yeah, that's all, guys. Congratulations to the winners, and much power and motivation to those who were not able to win this week. And definitely, you guys will have your name on the screen the coming week. So yeah, Tanvi, you can take on to the quiz part, and this is about team. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, congratulations once again to all the winners. Your hard work will really pay you off. So, now we'll begin with the quiz. So, I'll just share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Not yet, Tanvi. I guess Manisha will have
It
to.
got a bit freezed.
Okay, till then the presentation gets into the stage. I hope you all are really enjoying. And Guys, I want to make one point here, that please continue to give feedback in terms of what are you liking about the event, and what are you not liking about the event that are being organized as your developer community, because your feedback really matters for us. This is definitely for the community. So please guys, do put in the feedback. You can message us on LinkedIn, any of the organizers at it, as your developer community Dehradun. So you feel free to DM us on LinkedIn, or if you want to get in touch like in more offline terms, if you are at Dehradun, so definitely you can ping us. You can tell us, can we meet? We definitely organize meetups wherein we invite all the community members to get offline and interact in a much better way. So guys, we can definitely do that. Tanvi, what's the delay?
Actually, my screen got freezed. I'm just fixing it up. I'll ask
Okay,
Mansha to share the screen so that she can present the quiz.
surely.
By the time, I'd like to request all the participants for the quiz to have a Kahoot in their mobile phones so that they can mark the answers quickly.
So till the time, maybe let's share the link, Kahoot link in the chat and the code. So guys, you can start joining. I hope my screen is visible and I'm audible. So this is the game pin, and you can go to kahoot.it. Till the time everyone joins, maybe you can share it with your friends as well if you want them to win some Microsoft Azure goodies. Till the time, Mancha, I hope you have shared the link and the code in the chat as well. Guys, we'll wait for a couple of more minutes. Till then, some more participants can join the quiz.
Guys, make sure to join fast as we'll be starting in a minute or so. And let's see who will win the Microsoft goodies. Guys, you have to go at kahoot.in and enter the pin which has been shared in the chat box. Yakshu will be starting at 7:40. If it's okay.
Yeah, let's start by 7:45.
Okay, okay, great. I think Yakshu, most of us have joined, so we can start the quiz. Yeah, guys, make sure to answer on your screen. You will see the question on Yakshu's screen and make sure to mark the color on your screen. So the first question is your backup requires which of the following? Mark the correct color on your screen by matching it with the color on Yakshu's screen. So yeah, we have 10 seconds left, so make sure to do it fast. 3, 2, 1. So the correct answer was a recovery service vault. So let's see who have answered it correctly. What is the scoreboard? Great. So we have our three top winners on the quiz. So the next question, which of the following most accurately describes Azure backup? Guys, make sure to answer fast. 15 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. And so the correct answer was Azure backup has unlimited data transfer. So let's see what is the change in the scoreboard now. So now we have Pulkit Bhatia on the top. Congratulations, Pulkit. The next question is, what data does Azure Monitor collect? Guys, make sure to answer fast. The scoreboard can change at any time. And the top three winners will be receiving the goodies from Microsoft. Five more seconds left. So the correct answer was data from many different sources such as the application event log. So let's see what is the change in scoreboard now. Very good. So we have Ame on the top right now. So this is the second last question, guys. We are approaching towards the end, so make sure to count it. Which is your service is used to monitor on-premises connectivity? The one who answers first will be getting the maximum number of points. So make sure to answer as fast as possible. So the time is running out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see the correct answer is your alerts. Great. So let's now see the scoreboard. Pulkit Bhatia is again on the top. Congratulations, Pulkit. So the last question and the last chance of winning the quiz. Yeah, not last. We have a blog part 3 yet. So which of these options is recommended to back up a database disk used for development? Guys, this is the last chance. Make sure to make it count. 10 seconds left. Yeah. So the answer is this snapshot. Maximum of you got the correct answer. So let's see the scoreboard. At the third position, we have Harsh Yadav. Congratulations, Harsh. Then we have Ame. And who is the first one? I hope all of you are excited to know. Pulkit Bhatia. Congratulations, guys, for winning today's quiz.
All right, guys. So I hope you all enjoyed the quiz, and congratulations to the winners. And I would like to make one point here that you can still win goodies and other benefits by writing one blog on the topic that is monitoring and recovery for the day. So keep contributing, guys, and do not forget to fill the form and give your entry that you have posted it on LinkedIn, tagging Azure Developer Community and Wiz Labs. So Mansha and Tanvi, are we good to go?
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Thank you so much for joining, everyone, and thank you, Namrata, for such a wonderful session. So, as you are approaching towards the end, don't feel disheartened that you haven't won. We still have our mega prizes at the end, and we are keeping a track of all the active participants who have been positively contributing towards in this boot camp. So, we'll see you in next Saturday with another session.